Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Nana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Sisi Radha Madhava ki Sisi Radha Giridhari ki Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Thank you, sir. Radhe. So this morning we are reading from the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st chapter, text 20, Activities of Maharaj Priyavrata. Should we get a little air in here from one of the doors, do you think? Yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayat. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So we'll read the synonyms. Shri Sukha Vacha. Shri Shukadeva Goswami said, Iti, thus, samabhihitaha, completely instructed. Mahabhagavataha, the great devotee. Bhagavataha, of the most powerful Lord Brahma. Tribhuvana, of the three worlds. Guruho, the spiritual master. Anushashanam, the order. Atmanaha, of himself. Lagutaya, because of inferiority. Avanata, bowed down. Shirodaraha, his head. Badham, yes sir. Okay, iti, thus. Sabahumanam, with great respect. Uvaha, carried out. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Shri Sukadeva Goswami continued, after thus being fully instructed by Lord Brahma, who is the spiritual master of the three worlds, Priyavrata, his own position being inferior, offered obeisances, accepted the order, and carried it out with great respect. Please repeat. Shri Sukadeva Goswami continued, after thus being fully instructed by Lord Brahma, who is the spiritual master of the three worlds, Priyavrata, his own position being inferior, offered obeisances, accepted the order, and carried it out with great respect. Purport. Sri Priyavrata was the grandson of Lord Brahma. Therefore, according to social etiquette, his position was inferior. It is the duty of the inferior to carry out the order of the superior with great respect. Priyavrata therefore immediately said, yes, sir, I shall carry out your order. Priyavrata is described as a Mahabhagavata, a great devotee. The duty of a great devotee is to carry out the order of the spiritual master or the spiritual master of the spiritual master in the parampara system. As described in Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, 2nd verse, Evam parampara praptam. One has to receive the instructions of the Supreme Lord through the disciplic chain of spiritual masters. A devotee of the Lord always considers himself a servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshur Unminitam Dinataismai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Adhaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchika Padrupasya Kripa Sindhu Bhavacha Patitanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. So with your blessings and kind thoughts, I'll try to say a few words about this very important point that's being made here by Shukadeva Goswami. What is it? It's there in the Nectar of Devotion, Adao Guru Ashraya. Rupa Goswami is saying, what's spiritual life all about? What's Krishna consciousness all about? How do you do it? So he said, Adao, the very first thing is taking shelter of a spiritual master. That's it. So we want to bypass that. Guess what? It's called starting off on the wrong foot. It's completely not right. So he's giving some very, very good advice. And not good advice, essential advice, critical advice. If it's not followed, not much is going to happen. That's the point that's being made here in the purport. And over and over and over and over again. I heard some time ago that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, he established Guru Puja primarily for his household devotees that were away from the mandir, so they could have that connection. But Prabhupada instituted, so that means in the math they weren't performing Guru Puja daily, but probably for his household. But Prabhupada established an ISKCON every single day for all the devotees to make it very, very clear the point of taking shelter of the spiritual master, our complete dependence upon the spiritual master and the relationship with the spiritual master. And because if we think about it, there's a dichotomy in these different cultures: Vedic culture, you can say civilized culture, and today's culture, our modern culture. The idea of accepting authority. Do they still have those bumper stickers? Question authority. Remember that? It was a big thing. Question authority. Question authority. So the idea is that no one's going to. Huh? Yeah. It kind of like falls apart. Like the brothers, the gurus who write so many books about don't read books. They write more books than anyone else, right there. So, but that's the mindset, and it's the mindset of the lower classes. Lower means not so intelligent, because you think about in every endeavor you have to have an authority, spiritual master, and so on. Just like education. The whole principle of education is you're going to go and hear from someone who knows more than you, and you'll learn something, and you'll become proficient in that field, or whatever. Just like on Saturday, we did a puja, and I was talking to the grandfather of the child. We did the ceremony for it. He happens to be a world-renowned authority on cancer. He's retired. He lives just right up in the Cass. They've come to the temple over the years. Professor Bharat Agarwal. He's written hundreds and hundreds of papers on cancer and books, some of his books. He has a nice book he's going to give me a copy of about healing properties of spices. Sold over 100,000 copies already in all kinds of languages. World-renowned. He said, when COVID hit, he had already was being invited to Geneva and Paris and Hong Kong, all these places to speak. World-renowned authority on cancer. Hundreds and hundreds of papers, and he was telling me about turmeric. And the turmeric, he said, many of these, if not all of them, just like Lord Vishnu has 108 names, Lakshmi has, all these different herbs actually have 108 names. Each one, because they list 108, because they have 108 different qualities. And he started quoting the Sanskrit, the qualities of turmeric. In Sanskrit, one name is the one that reduces fat. One is that reduces stress or inflammation. And he says they just have all these names according to their qualities, just like the Vishnu Sahasranam, all the qualities of Vishnu. So he was going on and on and on and on. Very, very nice. And he said, anytime you want me to speak at the temple, to the congregation, if you have those kind of seminars on different topics, he said, we'll speak about Ayurveda and herbs and healing properties and so on. The reason I'm making this is if you had a question about cancer, he's probably someone you had to ask and listen to. He's world-renowned for all of his research. So there are people who know more than us, right? And we should listen to them, right? And that's culture. Whether you call it East or West, that's culture. Just like people don't listen to their parents, right? Don't listen to their teachers. Don't listen to their elders. Don't listen to authority. Because, I was told many, many years ago, the word authority means, you can look this up if you like, one of the meanings of authority is that person which expands your life. It expands. In other words, increases. It's not supposed to decrease or push you down. It actually increases. So by hearing from authorities. So here in this particular, Lord Brahma, he's the Adi Kavaye. He's personally instructed by Krishna within the heart of all Vedic knowledge. And in the Brahma Samhita, it's described that from Krishna's flute came the Gayatri, then entered Brahma's heart, and all the Vedic knowledge was there. So probably a good person to listen to when you're kind of like, what am I supposed to do in my life? Probably listen to Lord Brahma, especially if he's your grandfather. So you got two different things there. Great authority and knowledge, but also there's affection. Here's my grandfather is coming. So, in fact, that was brought out in some earlier verses. He had some so the affection was expressed between Lord Brahma and Priyavrata. But taking the order, but he's guru. And it wasn't just a family relationship. He had to actually come as spiritual master and put his foot down. I don't know if he could, because demigods kind of float, don't they? But anyways, he just, this is it. This is the absolute truth. This is what you have to do. And fully qualified to speak on what is the proper thing to do and not do. And Priyavrata, fortunately, was a bona fide disciple and a recipient of that knowledge, because you need both. You may have the best teacher in the world, but if the student is not interested. Anyone here taught in classrooms before? You taught in classrooms, right? Yeah. So when you start the year out, you can usually probably the first, second day you kind of figure out who the troublemakers in the classroom are, right? Who the good ones are. It doesn't take long, especially kids. It doesn't take long at all. And you say in the back of your mind, it's like, why are they in my classroom? They just want to create problems. They don't want to learn. They don't want to learn. So the great trick is to try to get them to want to learn. That's the juggling act of good teachers. Is somehow or other, wherever a child is at, you get them excited about learning to the best you possibly can. But there are those who are determined not to learn anything. What can you do? Right? They don't consider it important. So in spiritual life, there are two things. There's the bona fide spiritual master, and there's the bona fide disciple. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 4th chapter, the second verse is referred to here by Srila Prabhupada, but we'll also go to verse 34, which everyone knows, right? Okay. This evam parampara praptam, and it fits today's verse because we're talking about Raja Shayo Vidu. Krishna is saying that this parampara, this Vedic knowledge is handed down in the chain of disciplic succession from one king to the other. And then he says, in due course of time, it's lost, and it has to be reestablished. So he's speaking to Arjuna, who's also a king or a prince, royal order, because the royal order has to maintain law and order in society. It has to take care of everything. And to do that properly, you should follow the Vedic path. Because the Vedic path takes into consideration the broadest understanding of reality and what the laws of nature are, and the basic laws of human interaction and so on. It's very, very scientific. It's been analyzed and followed. And, people can try different things if they like, but it just doesn't seem to work out as well. It doesn't work out as well. So then later on in the Bhagavad Gita, it's one of the most prominent verses in the Gita, that Krishna says, Tadvidhi pranipatena paripashnena sevaya upadekshite jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. And it's referred to here, actually you could say in the verse, the last line of the verse, that Priyavrata, because understanding his inferior position, he offered obeisances to Lord Brahma, accepted the order, and carried it out with great respect. So in this verse in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm going to read the purport. Is that okay? I'm going to read the purport to this pivotal verse. The translation is, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Purport. The path of spiritual realization is undoubtedly difficult. If you don't agree with that, raise your hand. Okay, just checking. Okay. The Lord, therefore, advises us to approach a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession from the Lord himself. Actually, Mahabharat told me this the other day. We were walking, and he goes, remember, name, begins with an A. He's an English devotee who was here for many years. He was a Sankirtan leader. Aishwarya, yeah. He said, Aishwarya told him once, he said, I'd rather distribute a book, Bhagavad Gita, to a punk rocker than a hippie. So why did he say that? He said, because you go up to hippie and you give him the book, and hippie goes, touches the book and goes, oh, okay, I feel very spiritual now, and just walks away. Like he absorbed the Bhagavad Gita or something like that. I feel so spiritual. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Won't buy it, won't, it's like, So anyways, back to the purport. Punk rocker is, well, just that, they don't know, they won't do something like that. The hippie's like, oh, as I absorbed all the energy, I feel very spiritual now. Punk rocker I got to preach to, and actually read it. So he's just making that. Aishwarya was saying that about Sankirtan. So the Lord is the original spiritual master, and a person in the disciplic succession can convey the message of the Lord as it is to his disciple. No one can be spiritually realized by manufacturing his own process, as is the fashion of the foolish pretenders. The Bhagavatam 6.3.19 says, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. What does that mean? Do you know that one yet? Yeah. The principles of religion are directly given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The path of religion is directly enunciated by the Lord. Therefore, mental speculation or dry arguments cannot help lead one to the right path, nor by independent study of books of knowledge can one progress in spiritual life. One has to approach a bona fide spiritual master to receive the knowledge. One has to approach a bona fide spiritual master to surrender, and one should serve the spiritual master like a menial servant without false prestige. Satisfaction of the self-realized spiritual master is the secret advancement in spiritual life. Inquiries and submission construe the proper combination for spiritual understanding. Do you have constitute? Yeah, what did I say? Oh, I'm sorry. Slurring my words here. Revealing my being tired. Okay. Unless there is submission and service, inquiries from the learned spiritual master will not be effective. One must be able to pass the test of the spiritual master, and when he sees the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. In this verse, both blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. Not only should one hear submissively from the spiritual master, but one must also get a clear understanding from him in submission and service and inquiries. A bona fide spiritual master is by nature very kind to the disciple. Therefore, when the disciple is submissive and always ready to render service, the reciprocation of knowledge and inquiries becomes perfect. So, for many people, thinking they know what spiritual life is, something like this is revolutionary. But this is the Vedic understanding of how one advances in spiritual life, and to fully understand it, it can take a whole lifetime. Because there's a lot of subtleties here. But it's not just like an ordinary mundane relationship between a teacher and a student. There's something going on here, because Krishna has set this system up, and this is the system in which Krishna is going to reveal himself to the conditioned soul through the devotee, through the spiritual master. And there's three things here in the verse, this pranipatena, paripashnena, and sevaya. These three things have to be there. Just like it's described about Priyavrata, says, understanding himself to be inferior, offered obeisances. So, surrendering oneself, offering obeisances, having that soundness of mind that this person knows a lot more than I do, at least starting with that. In other words, we do not know when we walk in the door what a self-realized soul is. How can we? But at least we know this person is very evolved in their spirituality, very Krishna conscious. It's for my own good to take that inferior role. Okay? That's extremely important, not to be proud, not to be proud. One has to be humble. In fact, that's the very first step in that ladder of knowledge. Amamvitam, or sometimes adamba. Pride in Sanskrit, one word is damba. The way you remember it, I tell people, is if you're excessively proud, you're dumb. So adamba means no pride. In other words, you understand our actual position. We don't know anything about spiritual life. If we knew so much, why would we be here? That's one question that always comes up. If we could figure it out, people say, you don't need a guru. You can figure it out yourself. And I say to them, how's it going? How's it going? How's it going? Not only this lifetime, but how about the other, millions of lifetimes before this? How's it going? How's the journey going? It's like maybe, sometimes you can get lost. I got lost last year. I was up in the mountains, and there was this old trail. There's a fire up there for years. And anyways, this one gentleman I know, he said, oh, you just go down. So anyways, I got lost. I was lost for a few hours. You know, because the trail would go off and then just stop. And then it would start again and go off. And then after about 2-3 hours, I knew kind of where I was. But the hole was burned out years ago. So it all just changed. So I ran into these other couple. They were setting up their camp. And I said, how's it going with you? He said, well, we got GPS, we got trail this and that, and we're still lost. And they showed me they're on the app and had the old trail, and somehow it actually has the trail they took in red next to where they were and so on. And they were lost. So they're just going to camp there for the night. I just had a day pack on. So I said, let me look at that. And she goes, yeah, you just kind of just go in that direction and make sure you don't cross that, and you'll get back up to the trail. So I did that. Just kind of walked all the way up. But, you know, you say, how you doing? Well, I've been lost for about 3 hours. Well, guess what? That's not a good sign. You know, so we've been lost for millions of lifetimes. We're suffering birth, death, disease, and old age. You know, take an inventory. So we need a spiritual master, someone to guide us out of this material world. So one has to be pranipatena, one surrenders. And then, what's the next one? Pariprashnena, that means asking questions, and pari means all around, thoroughly, you know, just understanding and asking questions and just inquiring from the spiritual master. And the point is submissively inquiring from the spiritual master, not challenging. You know, you challenge the guru, then they're not inclined. Just like anyone challenges you, you're not very inclined to, you know. Like that old the pastime there, the person asked Prabhupada, if you know everything, how many windows are the Empire State Building? So Prabhupada said, well, so how many drops of water in a mirage? So Prabhupada, you know, it's like, what kind of question is that? You know, what kind of question is that? Just challenging. You know, how about this? How about that? Even I was I was listening to a lecture, and this one devotee after a class asked Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, what's Balaram's relationship with Radharani? And Prabhupada said, why are you asking? So that is not appropriate. Okay, on 2 levels, and Prabhupada took time to answer that. You know, when you have a class, you should ask pertinent questions from the class, but then he said, you know, that's a very, very exalted, you know, and he's talking about Radha and Krishna and so on, but he just kind of said, why are you asking? So we have to ask the right questions and thoroughly try to understand. But the real key is sevaya. Sevaya means by service, by rendering service to the spiritual master. Then the spiritual master becomes very, very inclined to bestow, to favorably to bestow Krishna consciousness upon you. Because whoever the devotee, the spiritual master recommends to Krishna, Krishna pays attention. It even says about Srimati Radharani that Radharani recommends you to Krishna. And Prabhupada one time he says, Radharani's thinking, I'm not a devotee. But he's a devotee. Krishna, please accept him. Because that's the mentality of the devotee. I'm nothing, but this is a nice devotee. Please accept him. So the spiritual master, the devotees, they will recommend us to Krishna. We need that. We need to be recommended. And that's the qualification is this, what's described here, these 3 things. And in Chaitanya Charan's book on the Gita, in different classes and articles, I tried to find it, but I couldn't. But I remember him saying these 3 things, this pranipatena, pariprashnena, and sevaya. He was saying that, especially remember the last 2, that it opens up Krishna consciousness in this way that when you approach the spiritual master, you're establishing relationship, and by inquiry, it helps us to understand Krishna consciousness, and by sevaya, it attracts the spiritual master to give their full blessings. And whatever knowledge we're hearing, we realize it. So you have to have the sevaya, you have to have the seva, or Krishna consciousness remains theoretical, right? It remains theoretical. But how do we go from the theoretical to the revelation? It's by sevaya, by service. So you see, everyone's engaged in devotional service. Prabhupada didn't start the International Society of Krishna Consciousness for everyone to sit around in chairs and talk about philosophy. there's so much service because that's how we realize it. It's by the purifying effects of seva, of service. And that purification is a relationship with Krishna is established, because what's our eternal relationship with Krishna? Eternal servant. Jivera hoy, swarup krishnera nityadas. That's who we are. So the spiritual master is bringing us back into alignment. Right? You got your van. You got to have alignments every once in a while, right? Especially if you have crazy drivers like that. So every once in a while you got to bring the wheels back into alignment, otherwise there's problems. Right, the wheels wear out unevenly, so we're out of alignment. Or just like a chiropractor, right? You get your back cracked, your spine is out of. You go to chiropractors? You do. Are you a chiropractor? Okay, very good. All right, so you know, unless if it's out of alignment, there's all these problems. So we're out of alignment with the absolute truth. And that's creating some problems. So the spiritual master just puts us back in alignment. And that alignment is seva. So if we don't like service, join the wrong movement. And actually, all we're doing is serving. It's the illusion that, I don't want to do that kind of. We're all serving. At every single moment, we're serving someone or something. Just then analyze it. Just sitting here and I'm uncomfortable, I got to move this way or that way, or my mind's thinking, I know it's Ekadasi, but is there something good to eat for breakfast? This class is going too long. So we're serving our mind, and, just every single moment, the soul is engaged in seva. So the problem, the challenge is find the right master. Find the right person to serve, and then you'll be happy. Prabhupada gives the example of the dog. Who's the happiest dog? The one with a really nice master, kuchi, right? Just takes care of it. All the vet bills, which are like phenomenal these days, and the food, and this and that, and the walk, and they even pick up your stool. That's humble. My humble servant. He's thinking, I am the master, this is my dog, but he's a humble servant. I mean, you got to be really humble to pick up someone's stool. If you think about it, right? Don't think about it then, okay. But I'm just saying, the happiest dog is with a good master. Even to the point they pick up your stool like that. Just pass the stool and walks away, and the guy's got to pick it up. So, who's the happiest jiva? The one who's understood the best master is Krishna. And how do you serve Krishna? It's through the devotees. How will we approach Krishna? Krishna's far, far, far away. Krishna's far, far, far away. Why? Because we walked a long way the other distance. Krishna didn't walk the other way. In fact, he's right next to us. Isn't that amazing? He's the furthest person from us, but actually he's the closest person in our heart. But because of our consciousness, we're thinking, we don't even know him anymore. Like that. Sometimes, what do they call that? Canceling? Is that thing now? You cancel someone from your life. You don't like what they say of this, so you cancel them. So we canceled Krishna a long time ago. But you really can't cancel Krishna. You can't do that. He's the absolute truth. He's the dearmost friend. He's in our heart. But we think we canceled him. He's like, just like, he's right next to you. But if you never look at him, but he's right next to you. Right? If I'm not looking, he's not there. No, he's not. He's not. I know. So if there's some tensions, like, I'm not talking to you, I'm not talking to you. But you're in the same band. Right next to each other, but I'm not talking to him. I'm not talking to him. Because sometimes in marriages that happens, right? Husband and wife have a fight and they're not talking to each other. Same house, they kind of walk by each other. So it can happen. But you can't get rid of the person. You're married to them, or you're in the same van, or whatever. So, especially with Krishna, you can't get rid of Krishna. It's not going to happen. He's in your heart. He's our dearmost friend. But we can do the cancel thing. Well, I'm pretending he's not there. That verse, Dvitiya Binivichishat, how's that? Bhayam. I was listening to tape, Prabhupada said that in that Sanskrit it means the second choice. Right? Dvitiya means second. the second thing, which is the material energy. So what's the first thing? It's the spiritual energy. That's it. But we turn, and the second thing is what we're now accepting as reality, that Krishna's not there. And bhayam, therefore we're completely overcome by fear. What's going to happen next? So the spiritual master puts us back in alignment, and that's done by accepting the spiritual master as life and soul. And the order of the spiritual master, that's where the sevaya comes in, because the guru has an order to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And by accepting that, Srila Prabhupada would always quote Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary on the verse, that when one accepts the order of the spiritual master as one's life and soul, that's perfection. That's the one disciple. That's the true disciple. So the service, in fact, I'll end with this because of the time, and then we can open it up. There's so much discussion. In the fourth canto of the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada says, after the spiritual master leaves, following or executing the order of the spiritual master is tantamount with seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. So the sevaya is our saving grace. It is our grace. So we all need to perfect our service in quality and quantity and so on. So there's much to be said on this verse. I'll open it up.
That purport to the, what did you call it? Pivotal verse, Tadvadi Pranipatena. And that verse was a focus of one of the, some of the non-changers. What have you done to the verse? And just to let you know that, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge in you because he has seen the truth. That's the way it was for many years, and when it's changed because of the grammar of the verse. Prabhupada has his own synonyms here. Seers, in other words, may not know the whole thing that happened with the Ritvik idea, of that, well, Prabhupada is still our spiritual master, and we can be initiated just like we were before by recommended, we can all be Prabhupada disciples. But this sentence that was restored from what Prabhupada said is a key thing, because the whole idea is, yes, just by studying Prabhupada's books, we can be initiated. Initiated means the transmission of knowledge. We're getting the knowledge from Prabhupada's books. But here he says, not by independent study of books can one progress in spiritual life. One needs to be under the guidance of a spiritual master. So that's one interesting point there. And the other one is the idea of bhayam tutya binavesha taksyat. You're talking about fear. How does fear develop? That always brings to mind the verse neha bhikamanasho sti patyabhayana pijate swapamapisadhamasa trayate mahato bayat. So on this path of bhakti, there is no loss or diminution. Notice the pronunciation, diminution. And even a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Now, I always wondered about that. Dangerous type of fear. Okay, you have the word bayat there. What did Prabhupada actually say? Because is fear really dangerous? It always said a fearful type of danger. And sure enough, I looked up if you look at the word by words, the word for bhaya is danger, not fear. And that's there in the synonyms to this very day. I looked it up in the Sanskrit, and sure enough, bhaya could be not only fear, and not only danger, but that which is the result. Bhaya can mean not only fear, but it can also mean peril or danger, that which causes fear. And so the proper editing of that would have been the most fearful type of danger, because the word fearful means that which is caused by danger which brings fear. Mm-hmm. So that's the way I always think of it. That it's a danger. The danger is losing your human form of life. Right? So there's a couple little reflections. We have a question from you.
No,
Deva, take it.
I have a comment. Question.
No, just open it up.
Sure. So you're bringing up that dog example. And we were in Santa Cruz about 2 weeks ago, and I was distributing books, and then there was this dog that was tied to the pole, and his masters were inside the store, and this dog was losing his mind without his master there, and he was like wailing, he was like kind of jumping up and like trying to getting caught by the chain, and I saw this, and I was thinking about this example that Prabhupada often gives, that the happiest dog is a dog that has a good master. And so I was thinking that, man, this dog is like my spiritual master. He's teaching me so much. He's so eager to be with his master, although the master is just in the other room. He's so eager to be in his presence again. He's crying. He's doing all that he can. Yeah.
Separation.
Yeah, so I was appreciating how eager the dog was to be with his master again. I was like, man, I really got to be like that.
Very good point.
I was wondering about, so the topic is authority. One should accept authority, but then part of it was that ultimately Krishna is the ultimate authority, and then any authority from anyone else is authoritative because it comes from Krishna. So any real authority, they have their authority because they're presenting Krishna's knowledge from Krishna or of Krishna. But then to accept authority at all requires some preliminary knowledge to even accept that I should accept authority, and then in what field do I accept authority, jnana, yoga, whatever. And then even if I get onto the path of bhakti, and then I need to accept authority, I need some preliminary knowledge to discern which is the best bhakti authority and all these things. So all these things require preliminary knowledge. And then even if I accept a spiritual master, then still there's some scope for maybe even there's some scope for even seeing what the spiritual master says in accordance with or in line with is it in line with Shastra? Is it also really in line? Does it have authority coming from Krishna? And so, of course, there's those two things, that if I accept a spiritual master, then the spiritual master is my life and soul. But the reason to accept him in the first place, or I should accept him in the first place because he's presenting Krishna's teachings, and he's authority because he's connected with Krishna. So, but I'm wondering if I accept a spiritual master, and then if my spiritual master gives me instructions which are not in line with Krishna, and so it's not really, maybe not a particularly an authority on this particular matter, isn't representing Krishna in this particular matter, but if I accept it because it's coming from my spiritual master, and just like we will say that if I'm acting, I'm following the orders of my commander, like an army, follow the orders of the commander, then it's not on you, it's on the commander, or the general, however it goes. And so if I'm serving Krishna, if I'm serving my spiritual master, there's that, if I'm giving an order, then it's not exactly on me. But to some degree it is. Because I'm supposed to be discerning. I'm supposed to actually see, am I actually pleasing Krishna? I should have some preliminary knowledge. So if I do something which is displeasing to Krishna, or I could presume it's displeasing to Krishna according to Shastra and other, information from other sadhus, but it's an instruction of my guru, does it actually harm my devotional service, or is it actually a hindrance for my devotional service if I follow the orders of my spiritual master, but even when I should perhaps know better, that those instructions aren't in line with Krishna's desires?
Is that a question, or you want to give class?
Sorry.
That's very good.
Does that?
No, that makes sense. Well, one thing is, there has to be what the particulars are of what you're saying, One thing, though, is if a spiritual master, let's say, gives an instruction which is blatantly improper according to parampara and Krishna, then that's not good at all. That's not good at all. So, and one can choose not to follow it, knowing that this is completely out of line with the previous acharyas and what it says right in the Bhagavad Gita or something like that. So we have to use our intelligence. Intelligence doesn't mean that one is always falsely proud or independent. Just intelligence, That's why it says you always have Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu. It's checking. They're all in alignment. But it's not that every single day you wake up and say, is my guru going to make a mistake today? So I got to check, Then you shouldn't have accepted such a spiritual master. That's why the minimum time recommended in the Vedas is 1 year. Minimum. 1 year with the guru. So the guru can find out, is the disciple actually a sincere soul? And the disciple, is this a bona fide spiritual master? Is this the person I can follow and who'll inspire me and one has faith in? So one's not wondering every day, did I make a right choice? Don't get initiated unless you're beyond that step, But, your question, a lot has to do on the specifics, on the specifics of what's being said. I hope that helps. I mean, others can make some comments. Yes.
I was just thinking that the Bhagavatam actually addresses this in the 8th canto with Bali Maharaj and Shukracharya. To me, it seems that, although one takes shelter of a spiritual master, simultaneously one has to have like a sense of a moral compass moving forward, because we see within our society there's been mistakes that devotees can make. That doesn't minimize, the relationship you had with them at one point, but it doesn't mean you should continue to follow their instructions. Ultimately, Guru is a person, but simultaneously a principle. So the principle of Guru can manifest itself practically anywhere, and the main source of inspiration comes from that person. But that person, if he's not following the instructions of his own spiritual master and representing his spiritual master properly, the disciple has the ability to be able to question that based on his own moral compass, just like Bali Maharaj. He questioned the authority of Shukracharya because he wasn't giving him the ultimate instruction.
And another thing in that pastime is Shukracharya came back around and realized his mistake. In fact, there's that famous verse where he says, he's talking about the Jagya and so on. He's saying, I forget how it begins, but there may be mistakes according to the mantra, mantra tanta bisharada. The verses, the yajamana may be bogus, the priest may be bogus, all these things, but by remembering the name of Krishna, everything becomes reconciled. So, he made a mistake, but it wasn't, he was bad through and through. He just kind of went off, lost it because he's figuring, Vamana is going to take my means of livelihood. He got bewildered there for a while and just lost it. But he came back around in that pastime, and, so. You were going to say a few words on this? Good point.
You mentioned the first couple of elements of knowledge is spoken of in the 13th chapter, 8th to 12. And Damba. Now Damba has another meaning, which is from Prabhupada's books. 4th canto, chapter 8, text 2. Different sons of Brahma. They personify different qualities. Another son of Brahma was irreligion, Adharmasya, whose wife's name was Falsity. From their combination were born two demons named Damba, or bluffing with a capital B, and Maya, or cheating. So Damba, one of its other main meanings is hypocrisy, or cheating, or bluffing. So that's something that also is amanitvam, adambitvam, pridelessness and freedom from, hypocrisy. Very important elements of knowledge.
Raj. Prabhu. Chandranandan.
Thank you, Prabhu, for a nice class. I appreciated how you said, without dealing with specifics, it's a pretty broad topic. The one example that came to my mind, some spiritual masters will not give instructions on certain areas in which they feel they have no experience. Like Niranjan Swami comes to mind. He won't give marital advice to any of his disciples. He said, if you want marital advice, you go to someone who is married and who is successfully following Krishna consciousness. And you have that principle. It's like Madhus and Kanch. They're a perfect example that didn't know each other. Prabhupada said, you two get married, and they've gone down the line successfully. But there were many disciples of Prabhupada that couldn't. And so Prabhupada, after a certain while, said, no, I'm out of the marriage counseling business or marriage business. So that's a really good example how sometimes the guru will give an instruction where, you may have some theoretical scriptural knowledge, but if it's not conducive to the nature of the disciples, that would be one example of why it would be ill-advised to give a statement of instruction when the disciple is probably going to take it as absolute because they are surrendered to the guru. And so that's the gray area, I think, that is being questioned, being discussed.
Question? Daniel.
Thank you, Prabhu. My question would be, even if the information may not seem to be aligning with you, should you always still surrender to your guru because you know that that guru is serving towards Krishna?
Again, you have to hear the particulars of what's being said. If Damodar Kumar is saying, Daniel Prabhu, can you please make sure you get up on time to get to Mangalarti and get all your rounds done before breakfast? Yeah. So it just depends on what's the general principle. Yes. But, again, it just depends what are you referring to there? Does someone go ask you to rob a bank today so you could pay for the patio? You don't want to do that. So it just depends on what the instruction is, right? I had a question for you. Is that an entry-level table they gave you? And then you work your way up to the bigger ones?
It used to be Glenn's, so perhaps.
Okay. Just entry level, you work your way up.
As a bhakta, when you're new to the process and you're being instructed and you're learning, this is a general statement, not absolute in its nature. But if you see you're doing something that nobody else is doing, or everybody else is doing something that you're not doing, you might ask, or you might question whether or not, even though your mind is telling me this is what I'm Krishna conscious right now, it might not be the highest standard or the best way to pursue Krishna consciousness. It's just a general. I think you know what I'm implying.
Everyone else is doing something else. That's good.
I guess it's more of a maybe as a I think a principle. You could say it's a principle, because whether the particulars are extreme or very minor, I guess the general principle I'm still wondering about is if I do something which is not in line with Krishna's desires, but I do it in accordance with my spiritual master's instructions, whether it's a very small thing or a big thing. Should I understand that Krishna is still pleased with me for following my spiritual master, or it seems that there is that it's not just my spiritual master, that I should understand that Krishna is displeased with me also, because I have some responsibility to have preliminary knowledge and follow.
I'll answer it in this way, shed some light on it. Vallabhacharya, when he was in Puri, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and him didn't get along because he was challenging, saying he had a commentary and he was, better than Sridhar Swami. So anyways, there was some distance. But he took shelter of Gadadhar Pandit. He wanted to take initiation from Gadadhar Pandit. He wanted to read all of his commentaries to him. And Gadadhar Pandit in his mind was thinking, I know this isn't pleasing to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But he say in his mind, he was thinking, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knows my heart. Even though and other devotees were criticizing him for, being with Vallabhacharya and this and that, he didn't know what to do because he was old. So, but he in his mind, he was that Chaitanya Prabhu knows my heart. And then at the end of the pastime, when they reconciled their relationship and so on, Chaitanya Prabhu expressed that to Gadadhar Pandit. But it was his anxiety, but he was thinking, the Lord knows in my heart my level of sincerity and what I'm actually thinking. Even the externals are very, very confusing. I'm not so sure. So ultimately, Krishna's in our heart. And if we're very, very, very sincere, even though there may be some kind of external thing, if we're very, very sincere and devoted, then things will work out. That's one answer to that dilemma you're going through. Okay. So we should end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Shri Ekadasi Vrata Ki, the day of Vishnu.